Let's talk about commas. How important are commas anyway? Well, here is an interesting comma situation. You are planning a bizarre bachelor party for your boss. He wants really interesting guests. So you send him the following question in an email. Would you like to invite the strippers, Betty White and Barbara Walters? You have just asked your boss if he would like to see Betty White and Barbara Walters strip. That's not good. This comma sets off on a positive. Betty and Barbara are the strippers in this sentence. What you wanted to ask was this. Would you like to invite the strippers, Betty White, and Barbara Walters? These commas indicate a list. Unless you want to get fired, you better learn how to use commas properly. There are more rules for comma usage than any other form of punctuation. The number one rule is this. Do not use a comma unless you have a specific reason. Here are the rest of the rules. Use a comma to separate independent clauses joined together by one of the fanboys, for, and, nor, but, or, yet, so, the 7 coordinating conjunctions. Here's an example. I love to take long walks with Kylie, but she usually gets cranky if I leave her in the stroller too long. You can eliminate the comma if both the clauses are short, as they are in this sentence. Braden is 3 and Kylie is 2. However, if you're worried about forgetting the rule, just always use the comma when you're separating independent clauses that are joined by a coordinating conjunction. However, do not use a comma between 2 independent clauses that are not joined by a conjunction, or it will result in a comma splice. And here's an example. I love to take long walks with Kylie, she usually gets cranky if I leave her in the stroller too long. That is the dreaded comma splice. Do not use a comma before a coordinating conjunction that only joins words or phrases, like this mistake. I love to go to the park with Kylie, and Evelyn. I see this a lot in students' writing. Use a comma to separate a dependent clause from an independent clause if the dependent clause comes first in the sentence. Here's an example of that. If you are hungry, we can go eat dinner now. Notice we have dependent clause, plus independent clause. But you can always flip the sentence around and have the independent clause first. Then you can lose the comma. We can go eat dinner now if you are hungry. Use a comma after introductory words or phrases. Here are several examples. Therefore, you should always unplug electrical appliances before taking a bath. When I was 12, I learned how to drive a car. In addition to cleaning the house and washing the car, I planted 2 flower beds today. Walking 2 miles a day for 2 months, Jody lost 15 pounds. To make homemade jelly, you must have sugar, fruit, and pectin. You also need to use a comma to separate words, phrases, or clauses in a series unless all of the items are joined by the word and or by the word or. Remember the strippers and Barbara and Betty. Here are better examples. Mary can sing, act, and dance. Notice that the commas disappear when I use the words and. Mary can sing and act and dance. That construction's just a little clunky, so you might want to remember how to use commas. The bread needs to rise for a day, bake for an hour, and cool for 30 minutes. Use a comma to separate interrupting elements, words, phrases, and clauses when they break the flow of the sentence. And here are 2 good examples. A toothache, in my opinion, is more painful than a headache. A migraine, nevertheless, can be excruciating. Now notice the words and phrases that are set off by commas. If we wanted to, we could lift those words or phrases right out of the sentence and we would have no problem constructing a solid sentence. A toothache is more painful than a headache. A migraine can be excruciating. Commas are used to set off non-essential modifiers, information that's just not necessary in the sentence, kind of a little bit like we just did with the sentence interrupters. Here are 2 good examples. Bibsy students, who are bright and energetic, are in their 6th week of class. Bibsy students who live outside of Shreveport-Bossier have a long distance to travel. Notice that the first sentence contains an unnecessary clause that you can remove without changing the meaning of the sentence, like this. we can lift out that whole who are bright and energetic part and just have a good sentence with the following. Bipsy students are in their 6th week of class. I just kind of wanted to flatter you a little bit. Commas are used around appositives. Remember Betty and Barbara. These are words or phrases that follow nouns that rename the noun. Appositives are usually considered non-essential. Here are a couple of examples. Sally Gardner, a freshman in my class, is expecting twins before the end of the semester. Notice the commas around the appositive. This is just information that renames Sally Gardner. Now don't get excited or anything. If anybody out there is Sally Gardner, please don't think that I'm writing about you. I promise. Made up person. Han Solo, played by Harrison Ford, steals the movie in the original Star Wars. I can take that played by Harrison Ford phrase right out of there and have a good sentence. Han Solo steals the movie in the original Star Wars. Coordinate adjectives appear together to modify one noun. Here is a test. If you can place the word and in between those two adjectives, you have found coordinate adjectives. Place a comma between coordinate adjectives, and here are a few examples. Long winding road, long comma winding road. I could put the and there and say it was a long and winding road. Purple people eater. I could not say he was a purple and people eater. That is not good. How about this one? Sweet, salty dessert. It was a sweet and salty dessert. The test works there. What about sweet dessert cakes? Could I say they were sweet and dessert cakes? That's not a very good sentence. Now remember when we talked about quotation marks in the punctuation review, we also said that we were going to talk about this again with the comma review. You need to use commas to set off quoted material. Mother said, comma. Here's your quote, take a bath and go to bed. Notice the period is inside the quotation marks because we've ended the sentence here. Here's another way of phrasing the same material. Quote, take a bath. Notice the comma inside the quotation marks. Mother said, comma, and go to bed. Notice again the period inside the last part of the quotation. Now let's try it another way. Here's the quote, take a bath and go to bed. Notice the comma inside the quotation marks. Said mother, period. Now if I had a question or an exclamation mark, that would go in the place of my comma, but I don't. So I do need to have a comma inside that quotation mark. There are several smaller comma rules. How about addresses? Mary lives at 2214 Green Street, comma, Shreveport, comma, Louisiana. You need to use commas to set off a direct address. Let's eat, comma, Grandma. Imagine that sentence without the comma. It's not very nice. Let's eat, Grandma. Do you eat your grandma? That's not very nice. How about this? Dates. April 23rd, comma, 1564, comma, is believed to be Shakespeare's birthday. Use commas to set off a date. Also, contrasting elements. The cake, comma, not the pie, comma, was burned. And that's a shame. Academic degrees. My doctor is Albert Ross, comma, M period D period. Although they are placed according to several rules, commas are a necessary form of punctuation. Practice writing with all forms of punctuation to protect many of the usages.